Welcome back to the Arise Featured Business of the Month, where we love to talk to people who are tackling some of the greatest crises facing humanity in a commercially viable way. If there's one thing that Israel's good at, it's solving problems in this world through business. So it's not just, we find a group of poor people or needy people and we're going to ask you for donations and money and then go take care of it. That's all great. But I really believe that the best way to tackle problems is through business, because it's the most sustainable for the long term. And today we have the honor of interviewing Joe Levy from 1702 AI, which is a very exciting company. Joe, you're the founder and CEO of 1702 AI, I understand. What is the big problem that you're trying to solve?
The problem we're addressing today is to be able to prevent mass shootings. We've built a software that can automatically detect small magazine-fed handguns, and it's directly connected to existing security cameras. And so what we're trying to do, it's a tech that already works, is the instant someone pulls a gun, we share that alert in real time with the intel, that's called in fancy terms the instant situational awareness, so that first responders can better assess and respond to mass shootings.
Okay, mass shootings. Now, it seems to me, as somebody who's just follows the news, probably like you do or anyone else on an ongoing basis, that there's somewhat of an increase of mass shootings around the world. Obviously, we have our issues in Israel, which everybody knows about from time to time.
Yeah, sure.
These problems creep up. But when I think about the United States and the shootings in the schools and the churches and the synagogues, is this something that seems to be increasing around the world?
Yes, due to COVID in the last 2 years, the economic impact is now forcing gangsters to get out more on the streets and becoming more violent. And it has been seen, unfortunately, a few days ago in Buffalo. And it's a huge problem.
Yeah. Okay. And the problem isn't being met in a sufficient manner today, by and large, because it's so difficult to monitor so many security cameras at the same time. And so what you're doing is you're adding, what I understand, artificial intelligence into the monitoring system to make that more efficient.
Yeah.
Would that be a good way to?
So today, for example, we are working with different smart cities and a large conglomerate of schools in the US. And obviously they aggregate thousands of cameras. And you can't have humans watch those cameras. It's impossible. They become blind. And so AI just points out to them when there's an alert. They say, hey, look at this. I think we caught someone with a gun. And that's the advantage of having an AI behind your security cameras.
And they can move in quickly and deal with the situation.
Yeah. Give you an idea, some of the largest airports in Europe aggregate up to 15,000 cameras. And in their security rooms, the video engineers are like 4 or 5 of them. So it would mean you'd have to handle like a few thousand cameras by yourself, which is just impossible.
But most of those cameras would be feeding information into one digital hub, and then you can easily upload your program onto that hub in order to connect all those cameras simultaneously?
Well, yes. Today, AI, when you do such a thing, with security cameras, there's a big problem, which is it's not the AI, it's also the data privacy.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, a lot of schools, governments, they say, hey, hold on a second. Where are you processing the data when you connect your program to our CCTV cameras? Are you sending it to the cloud? And no, we're not sending anything to the cloud. We're processing everything on premises. No data leaves the area. And the very cool thing that we're very proud about it's NATO compliant and GDPR compliant. NATO compliant means it's a fancy way of saying that everybody that's working with us has like a certain clearance level. That they're not affiliated to any organization or anyone that could eventually leak data.
And do you already have information regarding places where your software has already been installed?
Yeah, of course.
And has actually, in how many cases has it actually caught a weapon coming into a situation? I mean, is this, yeah.
So we're very proud to be part of a large European Union project called Project Impetus. And our systems today is installed in the smart cities of Oslo and Padova. Why Oslo? It's because in Norway they had the most violent mass shooting that ever occurred in Europe,
Right.
2010.
Right.
Right-wing local extremist who shot 69 people to death.
Yeah. Many of them children of politicians there.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. And Padova because it's the second oldest university in the world. They have 60,000 students. And this is where our system is working today. And we are also working with a very large transport hub in Europe, but we're under NDA, so they're going to announce it only within the next few months that we're working together. And that's where we at today.
I see. What motivated you personally to get involved in this specific area of business?
I'd say I happen to be at the right place at the right moment. I used to be in entertainment, film production. And I found myself behind the movie camera into like VR. And we were the first one to do the first VR simulation for the Swiss military in 2017. And one day, as we were doing some R&D for VR, I say, hey, let's plug in the security cameras to the VR system. I just want to see, I'm just curious. People are like, yeah, okay, cool. So we did it, and then we had this very basic detector, object detector, and then it detected this really huge kitchen knife on the coffee table. I'm like, oh, it's funny, it detects that. And then one thing led to another. A guy had his uncle whose cousin was working with, the head of security at Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. And then we met him. Everything happened super fast, and he's like, well, you should make that VR mistake of aggregating a CCTV camera like a real use case.
Yeah.
You should detect weapons.
Yeah.
And that's how it happened. So because I was working on a lot of feature films and TV shows in the West Coast in California, I decided to bring my Hollywood know-how and expertise to the world of video security. And so for me, it's like, started to be a walk in the park, like, hey, going from $1 million camera for movies behind like a $300 camera, man, that can be too hard, right? And then, to this you add like AI guys and PhD brains, and then today what you get is like one of the coolest
your
detectors.
AI guys and your PhD brains, are they mostly Israelis that are doing your programming here?
Well, as we are a company with our R&D in Israel, but most of the people, they're not Israelis. I mean, they're not born here in the brand. Like they're all like expats that moved to Israel.
Yeah.
And so in the office, we mainly speak French or English.
Yeah.
But hardly in Hebrew.
Yeah. You also being an expat, right? Having immigrated from Geneva, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. So born and raised in Geneva.
Yeah.
Studied in New York, Los Angeles, had my movie career there, and then moved back to Switzerland. I thought I was going to have a huge advertising agency. It was the biggest flop of my life. And then from there, we did that VR and moved to Israel with my wife 7 years ago.
That's amazing. Taking just the Hollywood film background and saying, well, what can I do to use this to save lives? I mean, that's just more power to you. That's a phenomenal story. What is your business model? So first of all, I understand your clients are local governments and even military, paramilitary, police, and security companies. Are you on a licensing basis? So a subscription based?
So the way we work is it's straightforward. We charge, let's say if you have 100 cameras or even 10 cameras. So we charge you $25 per camera. Then we charge for user licenses. And then if you don't have a device that can enable AI onto your cameras, we tell you what to get, like an AI brain, and we can lease this to you. So the model is straightforward. Our clients are smart cities.
Excuse me, is that a one-time payment of $25 per camera? Is it like,
no, that's a monthly recurring payment.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So it's very easy to absorb, It's like, hey, everybody, like in certain companies, you can use Gmail, Dropbox, you pay a monthly fee.
Right.
So for this, it's the same. Mm-hmm. And you can decide, you can stop after a certain period of time.
And then you get ongoing upgrades as you're continuing to develop AI.
100%. So by next year, we'll have the knife detector. Mm-hmm. It's coming out. So whoever has the gun detector, and obviously it comes with the rifle detector, you'll have the knife detection capability. Mm-hmm. So it's always like
in the same package,
yeah.
So let's say I'm the principal of a school in the United States, or maybe I sit on the school board, and I'm interested in upgrading our physical security systems for better weapon detection. What is the process? I contact you, and then what? What does that look like? How would you deploy your product?
Sure. So the process is fairly straightforward. We have partners in the US. If you reach out to us through our website, then we would tell you, for instance, like one of our Washington-based partner would reach out to you and they would perform the install for you. They would make sure that when the system is installed, it goes to your alarm center or to the relevant people. Mm-hmm. And that's it, straightforward.
Mm-hmm. And you have partners in the United States that are able to install this?
Yes.
That actually go to the...
Yes. Yes. And all the partners we have so far in the United States are companies that we've handpicked, meaning they're DHS compliant, they have the highest standard of data privacy, they have great track records, so it's not just like your average Joe that would show up and say, hey, I'm here to install your system.
Right. So there are many weapon detection systems in the world and in the market. Yeah. What sets your product apart? What are you doing that's different, that's unique, special?
Well, the truth of the matter is that weapon detection is a fairly complex problem to address. And of course, we have competitors. Everybody has competitors. But they do facial recognition, mass detection, fever detection, fall detection, they do many things. And we only do small magazine-fed weapon detection. Now, also revolvers and machine guns. And we only do this because we need to be extremely precise in what we do, because lives are at stake. And to do this requires focus and attention. And that's where we're different from the others. We're also different because all our data sets, they're ours. We're GDPR compliant, we're NATO compliant. And on the RFPs of, let's say take a school in the US, they probably would get some funding from the Department of Homeland Security, to up their security systems.
Right.
When that is the case, there are RFPs that they need to make sure that no one or no system was developed in certain countries.
Yes.
And our system was entirely developed in Switzerland and in Israel. Mm-hmm. So we're clear to go. Yeah. We also have that thing that we call retraining. We have 0 false positives. I know it's crazy and hard to
believe. 0 false positives. Wow.
Yeah, we've been working on this since 2019. It means that when you have an alert, the end user can tell the system, well, that was a false alert. And then we take that into consideration. And the AI is being automatically retrained and then redeployed.
Right.
So there's always about like a week.
So you're not going to get tackled by a security person in the entrance to the school if you shouldn't be.
Oh, but for instance, like we did a test after a deployment in Italy, and there was no false positives. So the chief of police was like, well, let's send some people with guns. So they sent a unit and they had to pull out the gun. And we had a successful detection about 23 feet away. And so for us, that was mission accomplished. You detect only when there is an anomaly.
So that there's a situation, somebody's walking into a school or a church or synagogue with a gun. How does the technology work?
Yeah. The instant the weapon enters the camera field of view, our software will write some data, such as a JPEG snapshot of what the camera sees with a bounding box around the gun. It will write in real time the GPS coordinates, and it will make a video file, which is about 8 seconds long, with the bounding box of the person holding the gun. And then that is shared instantly with your alarm center. Now, the alarm center receives this, and they can validate it, and we have developed a messaging system. If the dispatcher is required to, he can share the alert, that is the JPEG, the GPS coordinate, and the video to the first responders. Now, this is the huge value that we add.
Could the monitoring center also be on like smartphones?
Yes.
Apps? Yeah.
100%.
100%.
So that, let's say you're a cop, you're dispatched, and they say there's a shooting. Take the Charlie Hebdo attack in Paris. So the 911 gets a phone call, they dispatch like a policeman, and he gets there, there's a shooting on the street, and he's there with a revolver, and then he sees the two attackers with AK-47. What happens is your first responder is outgunned. Now take the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh, the attack that happened. Dispatcher receives lots of calls from people within the synagogue. They dispatch like first responders. And the police officers, they arrive, and 4 of them got shot to death. Simply. And those people are highly trained people. They didn't have what we call the situational awareness. They had no idea that the attacker had AR-15 machine guns.
Right.
So had they known that, they would have been able to have a proper response.
Had they used your system, they would have been fed a JPEG with an exact picture,
The
plus
video file.
real time, and they would have had the information they need to go
Yeah,
and deal with the
and then
situation.
they can say, wow, this guy is wearing like a helmet, body armor, and machine guns, so let's get in with the SWAT, or let's get in together.
Right, right. That's amazing. That's amazing. So, how big is the market, and where do you want to see the company in another 5 years?
Sure.
As far as your chunk of the market, and what do you need to get there?
Well, the physical security market is about to hit like $160 billion by 2028. So it's a fairly large chunk. And then when you consider that everybody now wants like security cameras, so far we're certain that we can achieve probably, I cannot say what our CFO is saying in terms of like numbers, but I can tell you that we had a very profitable Q1 2022. Where we see ourselves is we want to be the people to go to. When you need weapon detection, we are now becoming the reference for governments in Europe. In the US, we started to work with different schools that had mass shootings.
Yeah.
And that was our strategy last year. We say we want to focus with the Department of Education. We want to equip 137,000 public and private schools in the US. That's our mission. So that's where we see ourselves in the next few years.
Amazing. By the way, regarding Europe, right? At least again, as a somebody who kind of follows the news, it would seem that Great Britain is a highly monitored country. Are you already working with them as far these cameras on every street corner and trying to identify terrorist threats and so on and so forth? Have you gotten into that market yet?
No, not yet. The UK is the mecca of CCTV.
Right, that's
what people say.
Easy way to say that.
But that was in order to detect IRA attacks back in the 80s.
Right, right.
And today you have to understand, like if you would deploy in the city of London, you have to deal with every single municipality, and that's a headache. That's why we've decided to focus on the U.S.
In the
market.
United States, yeah.
For schools.
So what do you need to get there? Are you looking for strategic partners, maybe investors, distributor, people that can open up doors for you with local governments in the States?
So today our strategy is like, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel and become a super huge security company. We are starting to work with very large security integrators, security companies. They take our product, they do the integration, support, and everything. And this is working because that's what we've been doing in Switzerland. And right now we are in the midst of raising $5 million. People can call it late seed, early series A. I call it, this is what we need in order to be able for us to establish a network of account managers in the US. And as you know, making AI costs a lot of money because the hardware costs a lot.
Right. And
in the last few years, when we started to work with the European Union, we told them, oh, well, you can get those devices if you don't have them. It's like $800, it's nothing. Today, they cost 4,000 euros.
Right.
Inflation went crazy on those devices. So if we want to be up to speed, we need to have better hardware to make AI, and that's why we're raising $5 million.
So you're in an investment round right now. And I'd assume that you would be most excited about strategic investors that can bring not only money to the table, but also open doors for you. And
100%. Today, the existing investors that we have, they're based in Texas. And one of them...
A lot of guns to detect in Texas.
Yes. But one of them, John, is actually president at quite a large drone company called Fortem Technologies. And we're in the process of installing our weapon detection technology on drones used by law enforcement in the US. So we're looking to have strategic partners and strategic investors because people who care about that problem, that's key.
Yeah. So I have to ask you a very obvious question, like why 1702 AI? That seems like a very random,
Yeah, the $5 million question, right?
well, literally maybe the $5 million question.
So when we started, we needed like a name because we had this MVP. We could detect like knives using security cameras, right?
Right.
And we thought, let's call the company like Vantage Systems or Vantage because it gives you a different point of view. Right. And then you Google it, and obviously you have thousands of companies out there called Vantage. And so we looked at the data set that we built in order to have our first AI that could detect knives. And it was made of 1,702 images of real knives coming from real knife attacks. And so Karen said, well, let's call it 1702. Yeah. And I'm like, AI. I'm like, great, 1702AI, .com. And so that's why we have this unique name today.
So thank you for everything you're doing, and more power to you. What an exciting story. Taking a Hollywood film background, saying how can we leverage this to protect lives and create physical security in churches and schools and institutions around the world. I love it. It's wonderful. If you are interested in connecting to Joe and his team and what they're doing, go to 1702ai.com. You can find all that information underneath this video. We especially encourage you, if you're already in the physical security market, to consider investing with Joe. What a promising company. I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and keep tracking with us. All the best. There are many small businesses in Israel that are creating amazing products that never make it to the shelves of the stores where you shop. Unfortunately, there's an insidious campaign growing around the world calling to boycott Israel. And these small business owners see their potential market shrinking from day to day. What can we do about this? So Arise exists to make meaningful connections between friends like you in the international community and the economy of Israel. When you sign up to become a member of the Arise Alliance, we will send you on a quarterly basis a gift box filled with cosmetic products, culinary products, fashion products, amazing stuff made in Israel. Your family's gonna love this. Your favorite time every quarter is gonna be to stand around and discover what did you receive this quarter from Israel. And it's just a great way to weave Israeli products and the reality of Israel into your everyday life. Make sure you become a member today and help support small businesses and create jobs in Israel. Thank you.